A payphone, a teenage girl, a plea to escape. I have to get out of Flint, Coral Hall, told a friend in 1998. And then, nothing. No trace, no goodbye. Just a silence that's lasted for more than 2 decades and a story that refuses to stay buried. Kept alive by friends who won't let what happened to Coral vanish like she did. This is her story.
Hi, I'm Vanessa.
And I'm Aimee.
And you're listening to She Goes by Jane. At the end of this episode and every episode, we will be joined by a special guest who will read an original poem by Aimee Baker about the women we're featuring. This week, we are joined by Ashley Williams.
Hi, Vanessa.
Hi, Aimee.
Vanessa, recently I said that I had been researching a series of cases for our podcast that were just really emotionally tough.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of them. I mean, all of our cases are hard to talk about. This one in particular. And I was thinking about it, and I think like this case reminds me a lot of Deanna Merrifield.
Okay. In what ways? Age-wise?
Age-wise.
So she's very young.
Yeah, kind of background-wise.
Okay.
And because I was thinking about Deanna as I was on my way here to record this episode, I thought I would just pitch that Deanna Merrifield's sister. So we did an episode about Deanna. I encourage everyone to check that out. But Deanna Merrifield's sister is returned to actively being on social media to raise awareness about Deanna. And you can find her under Finding Deanna on Instagram and Facebook.
Okay. I'll do that as well personally. I know we did that as on our She Goes by Jane.
Yeah. And I think like if our listeners could follow that account and raise awareness about Deanna's story, that would go a long way to publicizing what happened to her.
Can you say that name one more time?
Deanna Merrifield. And the account is Finding Deanna.
Finding Deanna. Okay. And she was also mentioned in our documentary that we did with you.
Yes. Yeah. So because I think about her quite a lot, and like very often when I think about Deanna Merrifield, it's one of those cases that's just feels like a little more like emotionally connected to kind of my understanding of the world and history.
Right.
Coral is going to kind of fall into that as well. Yes. So we're talking today about Coral Hall.
Okay.
So I will just dive right in.
Okay.
It's the day after her 14th birthday. Coral Hall huddles at a payphone near the corner of Ann Arbor and West Court Streets in Flint, Michigan. Just beneath the weathered horse statue that marks the entrance to the White Horse Tavern, she pushes coins into the slot and dials a number she's only recently memorized. Melissa Pierce answers. She's an adult living in another part of the state now, but she and Coral became close when they shared an apartment building. Coral's voice is soft and shaky. "Come get me," she says. "I need to get out of Flint." Melissa doesn't hesitate. She knows Coral wouldn't ask unless she was desperate, and Melissa already has a sense of what Coral is trying to escape. She sends her uncle and her boyfriend to Flint right away. But by the time they arrive, Coral is gone. The call to Melissa will be the last one she will ever make.
This kid.
Yes.
Is basically, she's barely 14, and she's that desperate to escape something?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now you have me interested.
Okay. So before we really get into this, like when I think about Coral, I think about her as that girl, right? Like, and her life stopped in a time just after she turned 14. So just after.
Like barely.
Yeah, the day before. And when I see cases like Coral's, it's sometimes hard to wrap my head around the fact that she was born in 1984, which means she's just 2 years younger than I am. And that means that we likely listened to the same music, watched the same television shows, had the same celebrity crushes. You know, despite those surface similarities, our lives were so different. Today, Flint, Michigan is almost a shorthand for urban decay and government neglect. But even when Coral was growing up, the city was already in steep decline. It was once a proud hub of the American auto industry, but had become a place marked by poverty, disinvestment, and the growing shadow of the drug crisis. Now, Coral's story reflects some of those broader forces, cycles of abuse, institutional failures, economic hardships, but her story is also hers alone. She was a girl with a great laugh, a sister you'd fight over boys with, the kind of best friend you'd sneak to the woods to eat cookies with when the world felt too heavy. And in today's episode, we'll trace what's publicly known about Coral's life and disappearance, but I have to be very clear, this is only a partial view. We can't know everything Coral experienced in her 14 years, and some pieces of her story remain closely held, now guarded by the friends who never stopped fighting for her, or with Coral herself. Experiences that she never shared, even with those who loved her the most. So we'll explore the abuse she endured, the night she disappeared, the investigation, and the delayed but partial justice that finally came years later. So before we begin, I want to offer a content warning. This episode includes references to violence, sexual assault, and drug use. We're going to talk about those topics with care and compassion, and we'll do so because Coral deserves that honesty. But this was a hard episode to work on and a hard one to share. What I truly believe is that someone out there knows more, and it's time for them to come forward.
Okay, so I'm just going to say, like, this episode is starting out really, really heavy.
Mm-hmm.
This is a lot. And just, like, having those little, like, details about her life, like how she was with her friends and little bits about her. It's like, it's always one of those things where I want to hear more about the girls that we're talking about or the women that we're talking about. But then when we do, it just almost makes you feel almost too attached right off the bat. Like where it's so hard to listen to a story like this when you feel connected to the person right away, which I'm feeling very connected to Coral right away. But at the same time, like, even though it's hard to hear, I think it's amazing that, like, you're here to tell this story to us and that her name is still there and we're going to get to hear all of these things about her and what happened to her. So on one hand, it's like very, very hard, but on the other hand, I'm thankful that we get to do this.
Yeah, like as I write these and research these, like I always have their pictures up on my screen. So like Coral just has the cutest little munchkin face and this like blonde hair. She's like this little tiny, like you just wanted to like wrap her up, right?
Right.
Yeah, and so it's also hard to be like, oh, this like little
very much a
girl.
Child, right? Very much a child. Like, I don't know how many times we can like reinforce the fact that, because so many times a girl Coral's age will go missing and they'll call her a young woman.
Mm-hmm.
No,
she's a kid. Yeah,
this is a kid that disappeared.
I think it's as well, like when you're that age, you don't want to be seen as like
no,
a kid.
I know
right?
she wouldn't have. She would hate that I'm saying that probably because she probably feels like, oh, I'm a teenager. You know, I'm practically an adult. I can take care of myself. But at the same time, like, and teenagers are such a unique stage to be in where they are still so much child, but becoming independent. But it doesn't mean as other people, as adults, that we can't find ways to protect them in that independence.
Yeah.
So I want to find a way to protect her.
Yeah, like go back in
time and protect Coral. Yeah. Like she's, like you said, she's a couple years younger than you. That makes her like 5 years younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's just, imagine like at this time, you know, I was already in my late teens and
yeah. So it's like we can start to place like where we were.
This 19-year-old that like, how could I have helped this 14-year-old, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just thinking that I think that way, like normally I think we're younger than the people that we talk about. So it's just like, oh, okay. Or the same age even. And like, this is what's happened and you feel a parallel to it. But maybe because we're a little older, we're feeling a little more like protective of Coral. Right. Also, just her little name. And
I know. It's such a beautiful name.
It is such a beautiful name.
So let's get into her story.
Okay.
Now, Coral, she was born on September 21st, 1984 at the Flint Osteopathic Hospital to Sharon Hall, who was just 18 at the time. Her father's name wasn't on the birth certificate, and it's unclear whether Coral knew who he was. What we do know is that he was not actively involved in her life. Now, Coral would be joined by her sister Jacinda, whose name I use only because she has publicly spoken about Coral, and a brother. And again, it's unclear how quickly Sharon lost custody of her children, but records show that the Genesee County probate court judge found that Sharon was unable to care for Coral. By 1987, custody of Coral was awarded to her maternal grandmother, and her siblings were placed in foster care. But while the courts determined that her grandmother would be more of a stable caregiver that didn't mean that life was easy. Coral's grandmother worked multiple jobs, but she still relied on public assistance, in particular food stamps. They shopped for clothes at Goodwill, and like many families facing economic hardship, they were forced to move frequently, and Coral bounced around from different school districts. It was at one of those schools, Atherton, that Coral met Melissa Jackson, who would become one of her best friends.
This is not the same Melissa, right? That we already mentioned?
No. So now, to be clear, there are, yes, two Melissas in this story. So there's Melissa Pierce, who's Coral's older adult friend, the one that moved away and got the phone call.
Okay.
And who I mentioned at the start of the episode. And there's Melissa Jackson, who's Coral's best friend. And I'll use their last names to avoid confusion.
Okay.
Though, honestly, if you're around, our age, you'll already be used to it because basically everyone from my childhood was named Melissa or Jessica.
Yeah, there was a lot of Melissas and Jessicas. And Jennifers.
Jennifers, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I might have gone to school with like 3 Jennifers.
Yeah, there's a lot of Jennifers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Melissa Jackson, Coral, and a third friend, Tanya, became a tight-knit trio. Tanya said it was always me, Melissa, and Coral, just playing stupid games and having a good time. Even when Coral moved, Tanya said that she always kept in touch, and the two of them would become Coral's safe place. Whenever things got too heavy, they'd sneak off to the woods and eat cookies together. And things were often heavy for Coral. In 1996, when Coral was 11, a man her grandmother was dating left her unattended in a car on North Dort Highway, an area known for its bars and strip clubs. Police responded, and the incident was officially logged. That same year, Coral's mother, Sharon, who had long struggled with addiction, passed away at the age of 32. Sharon's funeral was the last time Coral would ever see her sister, Jacinda. And then there were the investigations. By the time Coral was 13, Child Protective Services had investigated her grandmother 5 times. Reports cited physical and medical neglect, and at least one investigation noted concerns about her grandmother's substance abuse. In fact, her grandmother admitted to using crack. Despite all this, Coral remained in her grandmother's custody.
So this child is not having your typical childhood, like in any sense of the word.
No. Yeah, so she gets taken away from one adult because that adult has been determined not to be able to care for her and placed with another adult who also is struggling. Yeah.
Bad to be with, honestly. Like, I'm not saying she's a bad person, but just as unhealthy.
Right.
For a child.
We understand, like, the complexities of addiction.
Right. So I am going to try to chalk the abuse up to the addiction, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know the situation, so
it's
hard. I don't want to judge her grandmother, but at the same time, it doesn't sound like she was stepping in with what Coral needed.
Right. I mean, there's a clear history of investigation here, and a clear history of her grandmother struggling with addiction, and the combination of those things means that is not the safe place for Coral to be.
It's not okay.
On September 22nd, 1998, the day after Coral's 14th birthday, Coral left the apartment she shared with her grandmother and walked down Ann Arbor Street to the payphone outside the White Horse Tavern. From there, she placed the call to Melissa Pierce asking for her to get help to get out of Flint. Melissa was likely not surprised by this call. She actually hadn't known Coral long, but during the summer of 1998, the two had become close when Melissa lived in the same apartment building. Later that summer, Melissa moved nearly an hour and a half away to the village of Applegate, but she and Coral stayed in touch. Now, living nearby that summer, Melissa had probably seen firsthand some of what Coral was dealing with, both in the neighborhood and at home. That same day, September 22nd, Coral spent time at the Office of Child Protective Services. The details here are murky. It's unclear whether Melissa Pierce accompanied Coral there or had simply encouraged her to go. But what we do know is that Coral tried to make a report that dealt with abuse and neglect she was experiencing at home. Whatever she told them that day was not enough for CPS to remove her immediately from her grandmother's custody. So she returned to the apartment she shared with her grandmother. That evening, Coral made her way to the payphone and called a friend and told her she'd been fighting with her grandmother and needed a place to stay for the night. And then she placed the call to Melissa. By the time her friends arrived, Coral was gone. Melissa Pierce says her uncle and her boyfriend, who had driven down to Flint to pick up Coral, searched the neighborhood streets for her, but there was no sign of Coral.
Wow, and this was all happening the day after her birthday?
Yeah.
Just what an awful, way to have your last birthday, too.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think because, your kids are now a little bit older, and you've got some perspective on this, but like also my kid is like, she's almost
Mm-hmm.
13. And so, like, birthdays, like, just like it's not just the day, it's like the days surrounding the
I
birthday.
mean, it's a week-long thing in our house.
Yeah.
It's your birthday week.
Right.
Like, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it's that she couldn't even have like a day of peace
Yeah.
is unsettling.
Mm-hmm. Now, 2 days after Coral disappeared, her grandmother reported her missing. She told police that the last time she spoke to Coral, she'd said she was going to return a book to a neighbor and never came back. It's hard to say where Coral might have gone. Her grandmother said Coral had been acting out recently, often skipping school, which the school confirmed, and she'd been pushing back at home. She said Coral had been spending time with friends who were known to be drug dealers, and rumors circulated that Coral might have run away. As the weeks turned into months, no one seemed to be any closer to finding Coral. Coral's grandmother told people she thought Coral was in California. Two men who had once lived with them had been joking about taking her there, so she figured it was possible that could be what happened. And Coral's grandmother wasn't the only one who thought Coral ran away. Coral's aunt described Coral as just a skinny little girl. She didn't fit in and had nobody to turn to. She said Coral probably got tired of her life in Flint and knew that because Coral had missed so much school, she was aware that she would be sent to foster care for that. I didn't really consider her missing, she said, but she's not contacted anyone since. I really believe that she left with a boyfriend because she couldn't take it here anymore.
No, I mean, everybody's saying what they think happened. Is anybody actually like actively trying to look for her?
So it seems pretty minimal at start. And this seems to be the story. For instance, the National Center for Missing Children, they pick up the fact that Coral might be in California because that's what they're hearing. So that seems to be the kind of belief, is that she maybe ran away with some boyfriends.
But we're not looking for her?
I mean, the National Center
Are
for...
we? Is the grandmother looking for her? Is the aunt looking for her? Are they looking for her?
It's unclear.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll be back in a moment. There is actually like a missing persons report for her. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has a record of her at this point, right? And Coral's sister Jacinda, she believed it was also possible that her sister left as well. She said her grandmother had told her that Coral had run away, likely to California. And Jacinda put her faith in this, and she pointed out that in 2007, their aunt received a phone call from a California number. The person stayed on the line and didn't say anything, but both believed that this was Coral calling in. And Jacinda said, "I know my sister more than anyone." In 2008, 10 years after Coral went missing, the local newspaper interviewed her grandmother. Sitting on a couch with family photos surrounding her, she talked about how hard it had been without knowing where Coral was. "I'm getting old," she said. "I would love to see my granddaughter. There hasn't been a day that I don't cry. Every day goes by, and she's still in my heart." Still, she worried that Coral might not be returning because she might be holding on to the anger from all those years. "I don't know," she said, "but I would love to make up. I would love to get her back in my life."
Ugh. So, I mean, it's hard because I'm so torn on how I feel about her grandmother, but it's just nice to hear from her that she really did love her and cared about her. Like, no matter what's going on, there was some love there, but I don't know.
Yeah. Because of
You know how I feel about people just being like, it's a runaway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
She
what
ran
is
away.
being done?
What is being done?
What is being done? That's a good question. So Melissa Jackson and Tanya.
Wait, that's child Melissa. Okay.
Yes,
not adult Melissa. Okay.
Yeah.
Child Melissa Jackson.
Yeah. And Tanya.
Okay.
They did not believe that Coral would simply run off.
Good.
Melissa was adamant about this.
Okay.
She said she would have called me if she was a runaway. She had my number. Me and Coral were really good friends. We would sit and talk about anything that was bothering her. She's not a runaway. So in 1998, when Melissa and Tanya heard that Coral was missing and learned that people thought she'd run away, they immediately sprung into action, canvassing the neighborhood near where Coral lived. Tanya said that she would spend hours wandering the streets looking for any sign of Coral. They even made their own missing persons flyers using pictures they had of Coral and started hanging them up around Flint. But just as fast as they could put them up, someone would take them down.
That's discouraging, but also kind of wild. Why would somebody take those down?
Yeah, that's a great question. Now,
Okay.
Melissa Jackson, she said that she thought that they were being taken down by Coral's grandmother, but that seems strange because if she was, like, why would she be doing that?
Why?
But the friends, they knew more about Coral's home life, but even that wouldn't explain why her grandmother would, like, remove those signs. But one thing they knew was Coral. Though the friends had sometimes fought and had your typical teenage disagreements, they knew in their hearts that Coral would never leave without calling them, and she certainly wouldn't let years pass without being in touch. At one point, they called everyone with the last name Hall they could find in the phone book, hoping anyone might know something, but they never expected to find Coral alive. By 2008, Melissa Jackson and Tanya were more certain in their belief that something bad had happened to Coral. Tanya said, "I really think we're going to find something out, but I know in my heart that Coral is dead." As the years dragged on, Melissa Jackson and Tanya were not about to let their friend's case fade into some sort of forgotten cold case file. Melissa said, "She was like my best friend. She was like my sister. She was very loving. She was very kind. She was the type of person that would do anything for you. She was funny. She had a great sense of humor. She was a wonderful friend. I still remember her laugh. To me, it was heartbreaking. I couldn't let it go. I did everything I could to help with the investigation so it wasn't moved on and forgotten about like so many missing people in Flint." So sometimes that meant visiting message boards like Web Sleuths, where Coral, like so many other people, had a thread dedicated to her case. Other times that was calling Detective Sergeant Greg Hosmer, Flint's cold case investigator, just to remind him of the importance of looking for Coral and to ask for updates. Melissa in particular was often frustrated by the progress on Coral's case. Unlike those who clung to the hope that Coral would come home someday, Melissa wasn't so sure. And then, in August 2013, nearly 15 years after Coral went missing, Detective Hosmer came to Melissa's front door. He wanted to tell her in person that an arrest had been made in Coral's case. On August 1st, 2013, Coral's grandmother was arraigned for a single charge of open murder.
Her grandmother?
Mm-hmm.
I should have known, because now that you're saying that, you've never said her name. No. I feel tricked, Aimee. I should have known from the beginning. So was she the one taking down the signs?
Mm-hmm.
And she made up the story about the runaway.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get all into that soon.
We are.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm getting ahead of it.
You are, but that's okay.
Yeah, okay.
Now, to back up a little, she's arraigned for a single charge of open murder. So
I don't know what that means.
Yeah. So for those who are unfamiliar, like Vanessa, basically an open murder charge just means that prosecutors chose not to specify a degree like first degree or second degree, which would allow them more flexibility during an upcoming trial.
So it's just like a blanketed term of murder.
Yes. And then the degree could be determined later.
Okay.
Melissa Jackson said, "It's been a flood of emotions for me today. I'm happy, I'm angry, I'm sad about the situation, but I knew someday her case would go somewhere and we would find out what happened to her."
Now, did Melissa or Tanya ever say, like, in any point that they thought it was her?
The grandmother.
The grandmother, yeah.
I think they had a lot of suspicions, particularly because Coral had often talked to them about her experiences at home.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're hoping for answers as soon as this is going to go to trial, right? But full answers were still in short supply. What we now know is that Coral's grandmother had been a suspect actually for a long time.
Okay.
In July 2001 and August 2012, she underwent 2 polygraph exams. During these exams, she admitted that she knew Coral was dead. While this might be considered an admission of guilt, it wasn't so straightforward because over the years, Coral's grandmother had told investigators several different stories. I think there's like 13 or 14
Seriously?
variations.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
In one, of course, Coral had been murdered by an unknown person in California. She also floated a story where Coral had moved down south instead. In another, She claimed that she had killed Coral herself, striking her in the head with a hammer and then dismembering her. She said that she had scattered Coral's remains.
Is the last one what happened?
They,
Why would you make that up?
Yeah, I think it's pretty complicated here.
How can you do that to your granddaughter?
Yeah. Now, prosecutors came to believe that her boyfriend at the time, let's call him B, played a role. B had recently been released from prison when Coral disappeared. He had a criminal history, including a probation violation after a breaking and entering charge and another stint for a drug offense. Before she vanished, Coral had made allegations of sexual abuse against B. He had reportedly said that he wouldn't go back to prison because of what Coral had told people. By the time of the arrest in 2013, B had already been dead for 13 years. He had died from complications of alcohol abuse. During the pretrial hearings, disturbing details emerged. Coral's grandmother had allegedly traded access to Coral in exchange for drugs.
Is she trading access to B or just anybody? Like, what is happening here? I don't understand.
Well, so yes, it does sound as though to access drugs, she did exchange Coral to B.
Okay.
In order to get drugs from B.
Okay.
Now, this feels like it could just be one of her stories because she seems to have a lot of them.
Right.
But they did have a witness from the time who had been in the neighborhood. He'd lived nearby.
Okay.
He was in his 20s when Coral was alive.
Okay.
And Coral, he said, was his using buddy, and they would often smoke crack together.
So he's claiming that Coral was using too?
Yes.
Okay.
And he says that her grandmother had actually also offered him alone time with Coral in exchange for drugs, though she never elaborated on what she meant by alone time.
Ugh. So did that witness that's in his 20s say he did that?
It does not sound like.
He didn't. Okay.
No, because he didn't know what she was trying to say.
Okay, so he just like, Coral was obviously being offered to other people.
Yes.
That's completely awful.
Now, in one version of events that Coral's grandmother did tell investigators, she said it was B who murdered Coral after she refused to have sex with him.
Okay.
Despite her various confessions, she later recanted her statements after obtaining a lawyer. Her defense team tried to have those statements excluded, arguing that there was no physical evidence tying her to Coral's death. Later, they attempted to move forward with an insanity plea. Eventually, in 2015, before the case could go to trial, Coral's grandmother entered a plea of no contest to the murder. Legally, a no contest plea isn't an admission of guilt, but in this case, she wrote a letter apologizing for dumping Coral's body and agreed to help search for her remains. 3 searches were conducted with her assistance. She had claimed to have revisited the site where she had left Coral several times after the murder. Now, these searches were complex. They used cadaver dogs and coordinated with the city's building inspectors, as well as the Genesee County Land Bank. Anthropology students from the Michigan State University also joined the search, but no trace of Coral was found. In November 2015, Coral's grandmother was sentenced to prison. At the time, she was 75 years old. A judge noted that, due to her age, it would likely be up to the parole board to decide whether or not she would die in prison. And then the judge said, "It's not only tragic. It's ugly how this poor girl had to have her life ended in the most violent of fashions for no reason whatsoever."
Did they get the grandmother on anything besides the murder? Because obviously she's like involved with trafficking and drug use and all of the stuff.
They did not, no.
Okay.
Now, after the sentencing, Detective Sergeant Greg Hosmer vowed to keep looking for her. Of Coral's grandmother, he said, "It may be over for her, but I'm still looking." Over the years, he led at least 5 searches for Coral's body, twice in locations her grandmother had pointed out, and none of those were successful.
Aimee, I'm still feeling tricked. You were telling us all those nice things her grandmother said, and I was completely feeding into that, too. Now I'm like, it lies All lies.
All lies.
Her grandmother did not love her.
No. I mean, I think what I wanted from this episode is to kind of also mirror what happened, because you read those articles from 2008 on the 10-year anniversary of Coral's disappearance, and her grandmother is just, it's like surrounded by family photos and saying all these things about how much she loves her granddaughter. And that's also what the public was hearing.
But it's gross how much sympathy she probably got and how much like love and attention she got from people at that time, thinking, oh, this poor woman, she was raising her granddaughter, she loved her so much, and she disappeared. Like, it's just, meanwhile, she's lending her out for drugs. She's abusing her. And then she says she killed and dismembered her, or her boyfriend did, or somebody did. But I mean, what?
Yeah. The brutality of what?
Like, we're taking everything from one spot where it's like this loving grandmother to the most brutal life and murder that you can imagine for a child.
Yeah. So, I sat with a photo with her grandmother for the longest time. And I was just like, she looks like a very frail elderly lady.
Really?
Right? And you're just like, oh, like that is what evil can look like, right? Because we're not
like
taught.
This little old lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're not taught that, right?
Yeah.
What are we taught evil looks like? Not old, frail women.
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh. Now, on January 16th, 2016, Genesee Circuit Judge Joseph Farah declared Coral legally dead. He said Michigan State Police had searched multiple databases. None of those searches indicated that she'd ever had a driver's license, had used her social security number, had a child, received state aid, applied for credit, or rented or bought a home. But he said a large part of his decision rested on her friends who had stopped hearing from her in 1998 and were able to testify to that fact. Coral had tried to save herself that September day in 1998, and now it's her friends who are trying to keep her story alive and to fight for justice for her. In February 2022, a Michigan parole board decided that Coral's grandmother would not, in fact, receive a life sentence, and she was released from prison at the age of 82.
You're kidding.
No. Melissa Jackson, who had been in front of a parole board in the past urging them not to release her, said, "I feel like she should have served her whole sentence. I wish she would tell us where Coral's body was." Despite more searches, investigators have been unable to locate Coral, and it appears her grandmother is keeping the location of her body secret. For her friends, though, they carry Coral with them still. Tanya said, "No matter who I see or where I'm at, I mention Coral."
White Horses. Coral Hall, 14, missing since September 22nd, 1998, from Flint, Michigan. There are two horses. The one they shot has no name, nothing to cry out as bullets cracked through the brackish dawn, pinging off its fiberglass body. Nothing is real here. In the old stories, white horses would lead us to the underworld, the glint of their manes crackling in the dark. They would rise from sea foam, dragging men's bodies beneath the waves. Now they are silent sentries, watching the world pass below their still hooves. There are two horses. The one they shot cannot turn its head toward the small girl quaking beneath its feet, her hand feeding quarter after quarter into the slot, the evening gloam sparking with every ring of the telephone. Tell me the story of the girl who escapes the underworld, the girl who outsmarts the devil and leads the white horses to paradise. I want a story everyone survives, where the girl makes it to the end triumphant.
For more information about our show, please visit shegoesbyjanepodcast.com.
Bye, Vanessa.
Bye, Aimee.